Is evolution merely a theory? Or is it a fact? Where did our ancestors come from? Hello, friends. Approximately 4 billion years ago, life began on Earth. And after billions of years of evolution, countless species of plants, animals, and living organisms emerged. Every tree you see today, every animal, every creature exists because of evolution. And among those species, one species is us, Homo sapiens, humans. But this raises a question. If humans evolved from apes, then why do apes still exist? Why didn't every monkey, chimpanzee, and gorilla become human? Questions like these are asked very often. Some people even deny evolution completely. They say evolution is fake. But how true is that claim? Is evolution just a theory? Or is it an undeniable fact? And how exactly did life on Earth evolve into so many different forms? In this documentary, we uncover the complete story. Chapter 1, the biggest misconception. First, let's clear the biggest misconception. Evolution does not claim that monkeys became humans. Instead, evolution says that humans, chimpanzees, gorillas, and monkeys all share a common ancestor, and that ancestor no longer exists today. To understand evolution, imagine a tree. A tree begins with one stem, then branches emerge, and from those branches, even smaller branches appear. Over time, the tree spreads in every direction. Now imagine that every endpoint of those branches represents a living species alive today. Humans are one branch. Chimpanzees are another. Birds, whales, insects, trees, all are branches of the same gigantic tree of life. But another question still remains. Why did some ancestors evolve into humans, while others evolved into chimpanzees or monkeys? Why? The answer lies in something called natural selection. Chapter 2, Darwin and Natural Selection. In the year 1859, Charles Darwin wrote a historic book called On the Origin of Species. Inside this book, Darwin explained the theory of natural selection. Now, when people hear the term natural selection, it sounds complicated, almost mystical, but in reality, it's surprisingly simple. Whenever reproduction happens, whether in humans, animals, plants, or trees, genes are passed from one generation to the next. But genes are never copied perfectly. Tiny changes occur. These changes are called mutations, and sometimes these mutations are inherited by future generations. For example, if parents have brown eyes, but their child is born with green eyes, that means a genetic mutation occurred. And if those green eyes help survival in some environment, future generations may inherit them too. Some mutations are helpful, some are harmful, and some change nothing at all. The environment decides which traits survive and which disappear forever. This process is natural selection. Imagine a brown frog living in a forest. It has 5 babies. For a brown, one is green. The green frog blends perfectly into the trees. A predator arrives. The brown frogs are easy to spot, but the green frog survives. And eventually, its descendants become green too. This is evolution through natural selection. Chapter 3, survival of the fittest. There's another term often misunderstood: survival of the fittest. Many people think this means the strongest, biggest, or most muscular survive. But according to Darwin, that is completely wrong. Fit does not mean strongest. Fit means the organism that fits best into its environment. An environment doesn't only mean temperature or climate. It includes predators, food, diseases, competition, everything around an organism. During the dinosaur era, being huge was an advantage. Larger dinosaurs could defend themselves more easily. But during food shortages, being smaller became more useful, because smaller organisms needed less food to survive. Some animals evolved thick fur, like polar bears, to survive freezing temperatures. Others, like humans, evolved less body hair to regulate body heat more efficiently. Evolution has no final goal. It simply adapts life to whatever environment exists at that moment. Chapter 4: The Beginning of Life. Now that we understand the basics, let's go back to the beginning of everything. If we travel backward through the tree of life, every branch eventually connects. Humans and monkeys share a common ancestor. Humans and cows share a common ancestor. Plants and animals share a common ancestor. And if we continue far enough into the past, we reach a world 4 billion years ago. At that time, Earth looked nothing like today. There were no forests, no animals, no continents, only oceans, a violent, alien world. And somewhere in those ancient oceans, life began. Scientists believe the first organism was something extremely primitive. They call it the first universal common ancestor, or FUCA. At that time, DNA did not yet exist. There were only free-floating molecules called nucleotides, which slowly assembled into RNA. Over time, these molecules self-organized and eventually formed the earliest ancestor of all life, something that existed between chemistry and biology, something almost impossible to imagine today. Was it alive or non-living? Scientists still debate this question. It may have resembled a virus, a strange entity existing somewhere between life and non-life. Chapter 5: LUCA. Around 3.8 billion years ago, FUCA evolved into something more advanced. LUCA, the last universal common ancestor. Every living thing alive today, humans, trees, animals, fungi, bacteria, all descend from LUCA. Scientists believe LUCA was a microscopic prokaryotic organism, a single-celled life form without a true nucleus. And inside LUCA, scientists identified approximately 355 genes, shared across almost all life on Earth today. This discovery was announced in 2016 by researchers including William Martin. But evolution was only beginning. Over millions of years, LUCA split into two massive branches: bacteria and archaea. And from these microscopic organisms, all future life emerged. Chapter 6: The Oxygen Revolution. Then came one of the most important moments in Earth's history. A special bacteria evolved, cyanobacteria. For the first time ever, life learned how to use sunlight for energy. Photosynthesis had begun, water became fuel, and oxygen became the waste product. At first, oxygen was poisonous to many ancient organisms. But as cyanobacteria spread across Earth's oceans, more and more oxygen filled the atmosphere. This event became known as the Great Oxygenation Event, and it changed Earth forever. Oxygen allowed life to become more complex. Cells evolved nuclei, protecting their DNA inside membranes. Some ancient bacteria evolved into mitochondria, the powerhouse of modern cells. Others became chloroplasts, allowing plants to photosynthesize. The foundations of all modern complex life had finally appeared. Chapter 7: The Tree of Life. From here, life exploded into countless forms. Eukaryotic cells branched into plants, animals, fungi, and algae. The tree of life was growing larger and larger. Then, around 900 million years ago, multicellular life appeared because survival in groups was easier than survival alone. Single cells united, and together, they formed the first complex organisms. Chapter 8: The First Animals. Around 555 million years ago, scientists believe a tiny worm-like creature appeared, Eukaryote, a creature smaller than a grain of rice, but incredibly important, because it may have been the ancestor of all bilateral animals alive today. Humans, dogs, butterflies, spiders, all share bilateral symmetry, a left side and a right side, and it may all trace back to this tiny organism. Chapter 9: Fish to Land. Then came vertebrates, creatures with spines. The first known vertebrate was a primitive fish called Arundaspis. And millions of years later, evolution produced something extraordinary. Creatures with 4 limbs. Tetrapods. One famous example was Tiktaalik, a fish-like creature capable of supporting itself on land. It likely lived in shallow waters, where environmental changes forced it to survive outside water temporarily. This moment became one of the greatest transitions in evolutionary history. Life was leaving the oceans and stepping on a land. Chapter 10: Dinosaurs and Mammals. Eventually, reptiles evolved, and from reptiles came dinosaurs. For millions of years, dinosaurs ruled Earth. But then, everything changed. An asteroid struck Earth, and the dinosaurs disappeared. But their extinction opened the door for mammals. Small mammals suddenly had opportunities to evolve and diversify across the planet. Without that asteroid impact, humans may never have existed. Chapter 11: The Rise of Mammals. Over time, mammals evolved into different branches. Monotremes, marsupials, placental mammals. Some laid eggs, like the platypus. Some carried babies in pouches, like kangaroos, and others developed babies inside the womb, like humans. Evolution experimented endlessly, trying different survival strategies. Some succeeded, others vanished forever. Chapter 12: The 4 Forces of Evolution. So what drives evolution? Scientists describe 4 major forces: mutation, natural selection, genetic drift, gene flow. Mutations create variation. Natural selection chooses which traits survive. Genetic drift changes populations through random disasters. And gene flow occurs when populations mix together. Together, these forces continuously reshape life on Earth. Chapter 13. Evolution is a fact. Some people still refuse to believe evolution is real. But evolution is not merely an idea. It is not speculation. It is one of the strongest scientific explanations ever discovered. When scientists use the word theory, they mean a scientific theory. A theory supported by overwhelming evidence. Just like the theory of relativity or the Big Bang. Evolution is observed everywhere. In fossils, in genetics, in viruses, even in modern pandemics. The mutations of COVID-19 demonstrated evolution happening in real time. Delta, Omicron, new variants emerging constantly. Evolution is not ancient history. It is happening right now. Chapter 14. The Rise of Primates. Finally, we arrive at primates. Research suggests the ancestors of all primates lived around 65 million years ago. And from this branch, eventually emerged monkeys, chimpanzees, gorillas, and humans. But the story of human evolution itself, Australopithecus, Homo habilis, Neanderthals, Homo sapiens, deserves an entire documentary of its own. Ending, and perhaps the most beautiful truth about evolution is this: life is not separate. Life is connected. Every organism alive today is part of the same ancient story. Trees, birds, whales, humans, even bacteria. We are all branches of the same cosmic tree, a community of life, breathing together on a tiny planet, floating through the universe. And maybe that is the greatest story ever told.